Thank you so much for being here on this miserably rainy day. At least it's not snowing. Uh, For those of you that are streaming in to watch the broadcast of our esteemed guest, Sharon Pinkenson, you're in the right place. If you want to tweet questions at the end, we will do our best to get your questions to her so she can respond. And so we're going to be ready to start in just a minute. So I want to just take a minute to, in addition to introducing Sharon professionally, I just want to say a few words about Sharon personally, since we've been pals since '91. Probably. Yeah, it's a little scary, actually. So Sharon and I worked together in the Rendell administration, and the reason it's important to tell you this is because I still remember when the Philadelphia Film Office was this moribund operation where nothing ever happened. And Sharon had a vision. And we spend a lot of our time talking about design thinking and how we're going to reshape the world and all these really cool things that we're going to do. So Sharon, I think, was born. I think you have like an extra gene or something. I don't know what's in that.
Wisdom teeth. So
Is that it? She has no wisdom teeth, as it turns out. So, but what was amazing was to watch this juggernaut of an adventure that she went on. She dragged people into this enterprise. She inspired them. She got them to believe that Philadelphia could not only be a place where you'd want to do filming business, but she lobbied Harrisburg successfully. She got film credits. She rebuilt that office in the Rendell administration, and to then Mayor Rendell's credit, he gave her the bandwidth to do it. Sometimes the most important thing you can do as a leader is get out of the way. And that's what Mayor Rendell did for Sharon. He recognized her leadership skills. He recognized her ability to do the kinds of things that had never been done before in this space. So fast forward to where we are today. Philadelphia is on the map, and that's what you're going to hear about. So the lights, camera, action story of Sharon Pinkenson goes back to some degree in history, but contemporaneously is very much on the move. And I just want to say a word about why we have her here. And she and I were talking about this earlier. One of the things that Dr. Klasko really believes, and it's evidenced in all of the work that he does, is that it's important to have these substantive collisions of things that have nothing to do with each other. Because people say to me, well, why are you having something on film? Like, what does that have to do with healthcare and the stuff that we're doing? It has everything and nothing to do with it. But if you figure out something that it has to do with it, then you're probably onto something that's disruptive, innovative, and useful. So having said all of that, I want to introduce you to what I think she can fairly be described as a Philadelphia landmark at this point. My friend, my colleague, one of the women I most admire in Philadelphia, Sharon Pinkenson.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see you today. And Donna, thank you. That was an awesome introduction. And I really do believe that Dr. Klasko got it right. I mean, he really totally gets it, that the more we learn about different things, the more we know, and the more we're able to create and to make change. So I'm excited to meet with all of you today and to tell you about my very favorite subject, which is my job. I'm the executive director of the Greater Philadelphia Film Office, and I think it's somewhat interesting to hear how I got there. So I'm a lifelong Philadelphian. I was born in Philadelphia, lived for 10 years in my childhood in Levittown, Pennsylvania. I moved back to, my father was a traveling salesman. All the traveling salesmen moved to Levittown so that they could get to the turnpike in their territories. But when I was 15 years old, I really, really wanted to move back to Philadelphia. And being an only child and extremely powerful with my parents, I convinced them. They were already working, both of them, in Philadelphia. And we moved to Philadelphia just before I started 11th grade. And it changed my life. I realized that the opportunities were great and that I wanted to be the very best person that I could be and that I could be a change maker. And I'm not sure that I'm certain that I didn't use those words, but I knew I had that in my heart. So let's say, let me get the slide thing going here. Okay, so I actually was a dental hygienist. I got married really, really young. I was 18 years old, and I had no idea what was going on, and I decided that I was going to have to go to get a dental hygiene degree because my husband at the time was a student, and he was afraid to be a doctor. Somebody might die, so he went to dental school, and I went to dental hygiene school so that I could help make money for us to exist. But then I went on from there. After about 8 years, I decided that I was going to take advantage of this incredible opportunity, which was the bicentennial in Philadelphia. So that was going to be in 1976, and I thought it was going to be an opportunity to make money. That was what my plan was. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I wanted to start a business. Well, I can tell you that for those of you who may or may not remember the bicentennial, it was pretty much a bust. I mean, Philadelphia was dirty and dangerous and not interesting, and there was only bookbinders, and there was not a lot going on here in those days. But on the Ides of March 15th, 1977, I opened a boutique with my best friend called Plage Tahiti. It was on 17th and Sansom. And it was we were very embarrassed in the 70s that we were actually opening a boutique because it seemed to be so girly and not so businesslike. But the reality was that I grew up in a family that was in the menswear business at 3rd and Market, shirt corner, pants corner, tie corner. And so I wanted to do that. It was the only thing I really knew how to do, and I understood an open to buy, and I knew about clothing. So I opened this boutique, and it was, can you all hear me okay, by the way? Is this good? Okay, great. So it seemed like the right thing to do, and it was quite a sensation when it opened. It was very popular, and I started designing the collection Plage Tahiti after a couple of years when I couldn't find certain things that I wanted in the industry. And then I started selling them to boutiques in New York, and then eventually I got into other boutiques around the country, and then finally I got a buyer in Bloomingdale's and also in Strawbridge and Clothier. So that seemed like a really great thing, but the reality was that it made me not like the business anymore. There were two things that made me hate that business, or want to get out of it. I shouldn't say hate it, but want to get out of it, the reasons why I wanted to get out of it. And one was because once you have a buyer in a department store, they basically want you to make the same thing every season, just different color palette, just slight, so that you have a look that's consistent. But I was my own muse. I wanted to make whatever I felt like making, and I found it very stifling. The other reason I got out of it was because it was the middle of the AIDS crisis, and my industry was becoming decimated. The film industry, the music industry, the fashion industry and the music industry were getting hurt in the beginning most of all, and it was devastating. And I had so many friends who were sick, and it was very, very sad. In fact, I lost my very best girlfriend to AIDS. I don't have a lot of friends I don't know a lot of other women that died from AIDS, and I can tell you that at that point, I needed to go somewhere else. It was just too sad. And I sold my business to my dear friends who own the knitwit companies, or the knitwit stores, and they hired me to be just the designer. But then I moved on, and I got a job as a stylist. I did a television commercial. So you'll love this story. So the first television commercial that I ever did was for WMMR. And it was for the morning zoo. Does anybody remember the morning zoo? Okay. So the reason they hired me was because there were other stylists in Philadelphia, but they were shoppers, and they couldn't make things, they could just buy things. And I was technical, so they hired me because not only did I have to dress the DJs as Sandinista guerrillas, if you remember that war, and nobody had any idea what the uniforms looked like, so I could go to the Army Navy store and buy them. The reason they hired me was because I also had to dress the chimp. So let me just tell you, a chimpanzee has very long arms and very squat legs and a very big head, and so they needed somebody like me to do it. I refused to go anywhere near the chimp. He had a handler, and that was the beginning of my career in the film industry. Who'd have thunk it, right? So I became a stylist and a costume designer in film, which was really pretty thrilling, and I felt like I had found my vocation. By then, I was a single parent, and I was working freelance, and I was actually making quite a good living making television commercials, because there were almost no films shooting in Philadelphia at all. So I worried about that, and there was the Philadelphia Film Office, and it's the very same phone number that I have now. I'd be calling every week or every 2 weeks and say, is anything coming in? Is anything coming in? And there was just a civil servant secretary who was running the office. It had been established in 1985 during the Wilson Good administration, but there was different executive directors or directors that were leaving the job, and there was a big turnover, and by the time I was calling, there was just the secretary. So I found that was a real handicap for Philadelphia. So then I'm 8 years. It's 8 years that I've been working as a freelance costume designer and working on films when they did come to town. There were a few that I got to work on, but they only would come for a couple of days. So, but then there was I did do one entire movie, which was Mannequin 2 on the Move. Has anybody seen Mannequin 2 on the Move? How many saw Mannequin? Okay. I was a costume supervisor on Mannequin 2 on the Move. And it was fun. Christy Swanson played the lead in that one. And it was a great experience for me because I had never really worked on a film before. We worked mostly in Wanamaker's. They made us come to work after hours, but before we would go automatically on overtime because we worked all night long. So lunch was like in the middle of the night. And at the end of that show, I cried for 2 weeks because it was so exhausting. But it was a great experience. And I learned a lot about what it was like to be on the administrative side of film. Now, fast forward just a little bit, it's 1991, and Ed Rendell, former district attorney, was running against former mayor. And so it was, we didn't know if Frank Rizzo was going to be elected again or not be elected again, what was going to happen with Rendell. And if you were here and you recall, he died very suddenly, Frank Rizzo. And it was apparent they were not going to put up another Republican. It was a Democratic city, and so it was apparent that the next mayor was going to be Ed Rendell. So I didn't know Ed Rendell, but he was talking about economic development, bringing fresh money into the city, elevating the business community to really help support, excuse me, these changes that he wanted to make. He was talking about Avenue of the Arts. He was talking about things that were really, really exciting, but he wasn't talking about film. So at that point, I was in the union. In fact, I held 3 union cards at the time. And I was on the executive committee of the IATSE local that was here. I was the only woman on the executive committee. We had a meeting, I guess it was August or September, I guess it was September. And I brought up this thing about our new mayor was coming in and all these great things that he was talking about, and the city was dirty and dangerous and broke, and we needed to really rejuvenize the city. And so I told my colleagues about this, and I said, we need to go talk to this mayor and have him talk about the film industry and start promoting it, because we really need this work, and it's really good for the city. It brings a lot of money in and jobs and press about the city, which we really needed some good press. And so they said, okay, you do it. So I figured, okay, I'll try to figure this out. And I sat down and put together a proposal for the Greater Philadelphia Film Office. Now, in 1991 was the everything was about regionalism. It wasn't just about the city. It's like, let's get the whole region, that we should be the greater Philadelphia. And so I put a proposal for the Greater Philadelphia Film Office, and I got in. I asked for a meeting with the mayor-elect, and how did I got the meeting? I have no idea. I guess he thought I was here and I was a cute blonde, and I got a meeting with him at the Palm, and everyone was coming over to him. And so, because it was, he was congratulating him. It was during the transition. I barely got a chance to speak to him until the very end, and I handed him my proposal. And he looked at it, he looked through it, and he said, I need a business plan on my desk by Monday. And I scared the living daylights out of me. And so I said that I would do that, and I owned a business. So I wasn't afraid to write a business plan, and I put together a business plan for the Greater Philadelphia Film Office. Next thing I knew, he was talking to everyone about how he was going to bring back the film industry in Philadelphia, and everybody was applying for the job. Well, I didn't want to be the film commissioner. I just wanted more work for myself and my friends, and we needed to bring this business in. It would be great for the city. But the people who were applying for this job were the spouses of wealthy people who were suddenly becoming deputy mayors, of which there were quite a number in those days, and they were all getting paid $1 a year. And somebody's phone's ringing. Gosh, I hope it's not mine. Oh my God, I turned it off. Oh, jeez. Sorry about that. Okay, let me just turn this off entirely. Sorry, folks. Long story short, I was very upset with the people who were going to potentially become the film commissioner. We call it film commissioner, but I'm not really a commissioner. And so I said, listen, there's going to be this big event in LA. All the film commissions from around the United States were going to be presenting, their locations and their incentives, if any, and why people should go there. And I said, and Philadelphia is not represented. He said, okay, you go, and we'll figure it out. And anyhow, I got appointed in about 2 weeks after his inauguration in January, and I set off running. I can tell you lots of stories about how that all happened, but I do want to talk about today. So let's move on a little bit. That's kind of how it started. Okay, so what does the Greater Philadelphia Film Office do? So we are, let me switch where this thing goes, sorry. So as I said, we represent Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties. The first thing I learned to do was to say them in alphabetical order, because I realized that now I was involved in politics, the last thing in the world that I wanted to do. And we are a regional economic development organization. Our goal is to get people hired, is to bring the industry into the Philadelphia region, is to get all those jobs, as many local people working in the industry as possible, because if they're local, the money's staying in the economy. If they are visiting here from elsewhere, most of those people, they'll get their salaries, they'll spend a good part of it here, but they will take the bulk of it back. They do pay taxes. You should know that every single show that comes through here pays, in the city of Philadelphia, city wage taxes. They pay every single possible tax, hotel taxes and everything. If they do stay, if somebody stays in the very same hotel room night for 30 days or more, no matter what industry they're in or the reason that they're here, it's tax exempt for hotels, but you have to stay in the same thing. So that's in all industries. What we do is we really support and nurture the film industry. We want the people who work in our industry to be the most highly skilled, the most dependable, the ones with the most resources, and we have to help all of the sectors of the industry to get what they need. So we're kind of like the lifeblood of helping everybody to get what they need and finding out what we need, like sound stages and equipment and most importantly, tax credits. So how many people here know anything about tax credits? Oh, okay, a few of you. So that's great. So there was a time in the mid-1990s, I'm not sure exactly when it was, when there was a program where you could get one-for-one tax credits against investments, buying shopping centers and getting one-for-one, two-for-one, three-for-one tax credits. And even more, I think it even went up to like 5. And then suddenly a new administration came in and they said, no more. This is gone, it's done. And a lot of people who made fortunes on these kinds of investments went broke because there was actually clawback. And so not only were they not able to do it anymore, but they had to pay the government back all of the money. And so it was just crazy. Everybody was going crazy at the time. And the Canadian government said, we have an opportunity. And so they started offering the film industry in the United States tax credits if they would come to Canada and make their films there, meeting certain criteria. And that was what we called that giant sucking sound. That's what all of us film commissioners were calling it, because the business suddenly was going up to Canada. All of the business in New York and the East Coast was going up to Toronto, and on the West Coast was going up to Vancouver, and they were building giant industries up there. Well, this was a panic for us. And we realized that we were absolutely stuck because the United States, and I'm sure you don't know this, but I doubt if you do, but the United States is the only nation in the world that has a film industry that does not have representation in Washington. We don't have a National Film Commission, and every other country does. I mean, name one, they all have it. So when all of the film commissioners were panicked, it was what was there to do? And that is why we never got one. We never got representation in Washington. And so we had to, state by state, speak with our electeds and get them to understand how important it was for us to save this industry, which is uniquely an American industry. I think it's important to point out that the film industry is the second biggest export of the United States. We export our culture through our media, and it is incredibly important that we keep that strong. And the film industry in particular, I think, is the strongest of all of those, and especially now, because we are, it's more important than anything. Do you know that the biggest, sorry, I lost my track. The biggest export in the United States is, anybody have any idea? If film is number 2, do you know what number 1 is? Agriculture? No. Anybody else? Yes. Weapons. Exactly. It is instruments of war is what our biggest export is. So which business would you rather be in? Exporting, killing, guns and bombs to kill people, or to expand our culture around the world? So I'm very happy to tell you that that's the business that I'm in. So we work on attracting film. We got our tax credit, by the way, program in the second round in 2002. Or 2003 was New Mexico and Louisiana got tax credits, and 5 states in the following year got tax credits, of which Pennsylvania was one. And we got a $75 million tax credit for the entire state. Pennsylvania is a very busy tax credit state, very busy production state, and we are the only state in the nation that has 2 major production centers, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So we are splitting whatever amount of the tax credit it is, and we're fighting for more than our equal share to keep our industry alive in our city, because it's become a really big business. And it is one that benefits the city, benefits the state, and benefits our exports and everything that we do. I mean, we have family-sustaining jobs. People make a very good living in our industry, and at the same time, we're actually impacting our tourism, our popularity around the world, and in the state. So we think that this is a really important industry for Pennsylvania and for the country at large. So some of the things that we do is, for example, everyone has to call the film office when they're making a film in Philadelphia, in the region. And so we facilitate all of their activity. We help them find locations. We help them find crew. We help them find equipment. We help them be able to park their vehicles. Where are they going to park their trucks? What hotels are they going to stay in? What kind of discounts can they get? And everything that we need to make sure that they love their experience here. And then we're, at the same time that we're helping the filmmakers, we're also helping the local community, making sure that our neighbors, our citizens, are not being walked over by these productions. So it's a very careful balance to make sure that our productions are happy and our citizens are happy, and we do all of that. In the city of Philadelphia, you can't hire a cop, you can't get a parking space, you can't get your trash picked up in filming unless you go through our office. So every single day, we coordinate every single filming activity that goes on in the city of Philadelphia. And so that's a big job. And we are only 6 people. By the way, we are 6 women. And it just kind of happened that way, but I must tell you, I love working with collaborative women. The work really gets done. And in a very smooth, collaborative way. So just saying. We also, with regards to our local filmmakers, we have a website, film.org, really easy to remember. Anybody goes and looks for film on the internet finds Philadelphia. So we are, and I think it's because I kind of got the internet. I just got it when it happened. And so instead of being the Greater Philadelphia Film Office, Philadelphia, PA, it was .com. We are film.org, and anybody who's looking for film is going to find us first. So let me move along, because I know you guys are going to have questions. So let me do this. This one. There we go. So here are some of the other things that we do at the film office. We are a 501c3. We are a nonprofit, and that is a really, really hard thing to be. We are not a hospital. We are not a charity. We're not curing cancer. We are not the kind of 501c3. We're not a church or a synagogue. We are, in fact, a 501c3. But we're not pulling heartstrings, we're not taking care of babies. So it's very, very hard to raise money. We were getting a generous grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for many, many years until about 4 years ago, when the state was having financial issues, and instead of zeroing out the line item called marketing to attract film, what they did instead was remove the entire line. That was probably one of the worst days of that entire decade for me, because once they remove the line, how are you ever going to get it back? Unless we can get Ed Rendell to run for governor again, would be the only way, I think. So what we do, and it is the pure nonprofit side of what we do, is our educational program for filmmakers, would-be filmmakers, students, and the general community. And we call that program Greater Philadelphia Filmmakers. We have many, many different programs. We do at least monthly programs, most of which are free. We have a student program where I think it's, if you pay $7 or $9 a month over the year, you can, or for 7 months or something, you can go to every single thing for free. So we do educational training. We teach them how to use equipment. We teach them how to work in all the different departments, and what their jobs are on entry level. We serve as fiscal sponsors. Everybody know what a fiscal sponsor is? So because we're a nonprofit, if a filmmaker is trying to make a film, let's say usually a documentary film, and they have this fabulous idea, and they want to change the world with this wonderful documentary film, they will ask people to invest in their film, and people will say to them, potential investors, I'm really not going to invest in your film because I'm never going to get my money back. It's not an investment. But if you're a 501c3, if you're a nonprofit, we can donate the money to you because we really believe in your mission and in your passion, but at least we can get a tax deduction for it. So small little independent filmmakers trying to make a documentary, they can't go through the process of becoming a nonprofit. So we serve as their fiscal sponsors. We collect them, the checks are made to us, they're earmarked for each individual project. We have about 35 at any given time. And we're fiscally responsible to the federal government to make sure that we give them the money based on very, very detailed invoices. And in that way, the investors, the donors, are happy. They get to get the film made and be a part of all of that, of whatever that documentary film is. And we turn all that money back over to them. We just take a standard fee, which all fiscal sponsors do. So it's a really great thing. And just as a point of order for this, we work on every single kind of film. We help student filmmakers. We help documentary filmmakers. We do TV commercials. We do music videos. We do television shows and series. And we do feature films. And if there's anything I've forgotten, I can tell you that there's nobody to take care of fashion shoots, so we do it anyway. So we do anything that's a moving picture, which is really the only term that works anymore. How are we doing with time? We okay? Okay. All right, good. So we also have a Set in Philadelphia screenwriting competition. So we thought one way to get more films made in Philadelphia is if we encourage screenwriters to write films that are set in Philadelphia. And we started this many years ago. And it's been going strong. We do it every single year, and we give out a number of cash prizes. The top Set in Philadelphia screenplay, the winner gets a $10,000 cash prize. If the top winner in the regional, meaning they live within the 5 counties, is a $2,500 prize. So theoretically, and it has happened, the top screenplay could win $12,500. That's a really significant prize. We have a big event to honor all of our winners. There is a regional prize. There is a prize for the best Set in Philadelphia screenplay by a screenwriter from the African diaspora that's specifically sponsored. We have a student prize. I think I may be missing some of them, but there's quite a lot, and they're all great prizes as well. We've completed this year's round. We have celebrity film industry judges. So it's a completely blind program, and we are honoring one of our judges this year for our 2nd annual Philadelphia Storyteller Award. And the first year we honored Nancy Glass. Many of you may know Nancy Glass. She, as well as Sheena Joyce and Don Argot from 914 Pictures, were honored last year. And they're the documentary filmmakers who probably they're best known amongst the films that you may have heard of is The Art of the Steal, which was about the moving of the barns from Montgomery County into the city. It was a very controversial film, and it really launched their career. They've made amazing films since then. This year, we are honoring Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson is a lifelong Philadelphian, born here, who lives in Los Angeles and is a partner in a company called Get Lifted. Get Lifted, his partner is John Legend, the very same John Legend, the EGOT John Legend. And we're really excited to honor Mike. We're having 2 events in his honor. One is a very private, high-ticket dinner. Everything we do is a fundraiser, as you heard. We stopped getting money from the state. I should jot back, we do get money from the city. We reside in city offices, So we don't pay rent, which is really great. And we do get a grant every year from the city. And I must say, that grant has been reduced year after year after year. In this particular administration, the most of all. Last year, we stayed flat. We actually didn't get a reduction, which was like, hooray, we didn't get a reduction, and we're asking for more money. In terms of economic impact, you may want to know how much we've actually impacted the city and the region. We've announced at this point, we talk about $5.5 billion since 1992. Our fiscal year starts on July 1. And since July 1, we're having a phenomenal year with production. Since July 1, we have already calculated up to the end of the calendar year, we've brought in another additional $500 million, so another $500 million. So we anticipate at least that much again between now and next year. So we're pretty sure we're going to be at $6 billion by the end of this fiscal year, which is pretty amazing, and we're very proud of that. That's a lot of money, and that money is money that stays in our community. So it is really something that I'm extremely proud of. So I did talk about tax credits a little bit, and we can take any questions on that if you want them. We also help filmmakers that are looking for locations. And so if you go to our website, you will find a location library that is very detailed, and you may want to put your home or your business on there if you would like to have it considered for filming, because you get paid for that, and it may be something that you'd be interested in. It's free to list your home or your business, your property, and there's some instructions on our website about what kinds of photos we need and how to make that happen. Again, film.org. We have crew and vendor directories, and it's free to the crew and to the vendors. So all of our filmmakers can go on there and help find their crew. There's also a job hotline. So on any given day, you can go on our website and find fresh new information about how to get a job in our industry. Maybe you're retired or between jobs, or you're just interested in being an actor and you want to see what it's like. You can go on there and see if there's extra jobs to be background on film and television. You can get work on a student film if you're a student, or an actor on a student film. So we have so many resources that I probably could talk all day about what those are, but I will move along. Otherwise, we'll talk about the same thing the whole time. Let me move on to the economic impact. So a lot of people in Harrisburg are legislators for whom we live and die by whether or not we get any money, think that it's not so valuable because when they do economic impact reports on the film industry, the only thing they count are the direct dollars in taxes from a production. They don't count all the money that the filmmakers are spending while they're here. They only count the tax money that goes back to the state. And they don't recognize any of the additional funding. So if you're getting a 25% tax credit as a filmmaker, first what you have to do is apply for it. You fill out many, many very, very detailed three different documents that you have to fill out that are very, very detailed. You submit this application, and if you're lucky enough and there's money to get a tax credit, what you get from the state is not money. What you get from them is a contract that says, okay, we approve this application. We're going to hold this money aside for you if you actually meet the criteria of your application. So about a year later or more, when the film is completed, you have to get an independent auditor, and that auditor will then review the application and see if you met the criteria. You cannot get any more than you've applied for. You can get less, but you can't get any more than, if you overspend, you're stuck. You can't get any more. and then you will get a 25% tax credit, and in some cases, a 30% tax credit if you shoot on a qualified stage and meet very, very specific requirements. So that means if you've asked for a $10 million tax credit, just to throw out a number, that means you have to spend $40 million in qualified taxable Pennsylvania expenses in order to get back $10 million. So I don't know what the state thinks all that other $30 million is going, but they're not counting it. They're just not counting it. So, there are states that get it and that are actually have uncapped tax credits. We're at $70 million. Our competition is New York. Now, New York is not uncapped. They are capped at $420 million a year with a rollover provision. So when they get to 420, they just go into the next year's money, and it just keeps being added on to. Georgia is the hottest place in town, in the country, and they are uncapped. Massachusetts is uncapped. Illinois is uncapped, and those are just some of the big ones. Louisiana, many other states are uncapped, and we're just amazing that we're having the amount of work that we do have here at $70 million and fighting with Pittsburgh over the money. It just doesn't make any sense. It is in the city of Philadelphia, it's consistent return. We fill up hotel rooms with visiting filmmakers and crew in the worst time of the year for hotels and tourism. We are keeping those hotels filled. So, and the restaurants. The filmmakers love to eat in all of our restaurants. And the weather turns, they buy clothes here. Their families come for the weekends if they're from New York and stay in hotels. And then they come back and fall in love with our city. And plenty of them come and stay. I will press on. Did I get that one? Okay. Oh, that's where we were. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Before, when this slide was first put together, our total economic impact in our fiscal year last year was $368,289,332.79. And that just in just 6 months of this year, we were literally almost exactly $500 million. So that's, I think, it's really been a great year. So let's talk about movies and TV shows that we have going on now. Some of our most exciting, unexpected, great films. When with the Rocky movies, when I first started here, it was like, please don't talk about Rocky. We have the very first, let me tell you the story about my very first film and my very first day at work. I love this story. How are we doing? We good? Okay. So I have to tell you this story because I love it. So my very first day at work, I was supposed to start, I got appointed, and there was a date certain that I was supposed to start. And the week before, I got a call from City Hall, and they said that there was a location scout that was coming to Philadelphia. They wanted to make a movie that took place in Washington, D.C., but it's too hard to shoot in Washington, D.C. The scout wanted to know if he could meet with the film commissioner to take him around and to show him D.C. looking locations. And I hadn't had my first day of work yet. I was a costume designer. I knew the city. I knew the city inside out, but I figured I would wing it. And so I went with a very, very experienced location scout who was very kind to me, and I took him all around, and what they were really looking for was a Capitol building. Well, as we all know, Philadelphia is not a state capital, and we don't have a Capitol building. But instead, I took him to all of the buildings that I thought looked like they could be in Washington, D.C., and streets that looked like they were Washington, D.C., of which we have quite a lot. And we spent the whole day, and he thought, oh, this is great, and this is great, but you don't have the Capitol. And so, and I said, I know. And he said, and I'm going to go to Harrisburg and look at that. By the way, the movie was called A Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy. And in fact, they shot it in Harrisburg. But the scout At the end of the day, I'm like exhausted. I just got to show him one more place. And I decided that I would take him to the Academy of Music because of the period. And I thought it would be kind of stunning. And I hadn't read this. I didn't have the privilege of reading the script. So I didn't know exactly all the locations that he needed. And nobody knew me then. And so I went to the stage door and I talked my way in to going into the Academy of Music to show him. And this very kind man let us in. He said, look, there's a rehearsal going on. You have to go very quietly, go to the first balcony, do not make eye sight with this person, and you can stay for a little while. So here it is, my very first day at work, and the rehearsal was Luciano Pavarotti. I can tell you that I said, I love this business. The film commissioner is absolutely the greatest. And the two of us were pinching ourselves. And we sat up there for about 45 minutes watching Pavarotti sitting on the stage, his knees apart, sitting there with all these white napkins across him because he spits when he sings, or spat when he sang. And it was positively thrilling. And every few years, I'll run into this location scout or hear from him, and he'll say, "Do you remember your first day at work? Wasn't that great?" And so it's a wonderful first memory. The first movie that I ever got to work on was a movie called The Age of Innocence. So my first director was Martin Scorsese, which is really something. They were only here for 2 weeks. And why did they come? They came because they were looking for a 19th century authentic opera house. Here we go, the Academy of Music. And they looked nationwide and around the world, and they ended up, of course, coming to Philadelphia because ours was completely authentic. So that was really amazing. But they were just shooting for a couple of weeks. But then the very next thing, right around the time that they were shooting that, I got a call from a producer who said that they were making a movie. It was a courtroom drama, and they were looking for a city where they could find a fabulous courtroom, but they were going to have to shoot in the courtroom for a couple of months. And is there any chance that you might have that in Philadelphia? When I first started in the job, I met with then Mayor Rendell, and I said, these are things that I know we're going to need. We need to be able to say that city-owned locations are going to be free. Let's not charge them rent to work on city property. If we can make it available, let's give it to them for free, because they're giving us something much more by creating all of these jobs. And a number of other things that I wanted to do. So I knew that if the judge, if we used a judge's courtroom and the judge would approve that we use it, because it was still the judge's courtroom, then we could provide the courtroom for free. And I said, oh, we could do that. I said to this producer, I said, come to Philadelphia. We have an incredible courthouse, and we have amazing courtrooms, and they're all, each is different from the other, and it's a dream for shooting in courtrooms. And they were very, very skeptical. I'm a new film commissioner, and it was right after Jonathan Demi won the Oscar for Silence of the Lambs, which, by the way, was shot in Pittsburgh. So I really wanted to get this movie because I was competing with Pittsburgh. And so I finally got Jonathan Demi and legendary Ed Saxon and other people to come. And they got off at 30th Street Station. I can tell you that Jonathan Demi, may he rest in peace, he was one of my dearest friends, ultimately, and for up until last year and a half ago when he passed away. He wanted to shoot his movie in New York, which was where he lived. He really didn't want to leave home. He had just spent all that time shooting in Pittsburgh. It was a great experience. He got an Oscar, but he really wanted to be home. And the problem was that the last big courtroom drama was a movie called Bonfire of the Vanities. And Bonfire of the Vanities was a greatly beloved book. Everybody loved the book and couldn't wait to see the movie. And if you saw the movie or you remember this story at all, the movie was a disaster. It was absolutely a horrible disaster. And one of the issues was that they couldn't find a courtroom in New York, and they used some dumpy little courtroom in New Jersey, and it didn't work at all, and the movie was a mess. And so everyone was very skeptical about making another courtroom drama. And I walked them up, and I showed them, and I pointed, and I said, there's our courthouse. and it was City Hall at the time. We didn't have the Criminal Justice Center. And they went, "That's City Hall." And I said, "Yes, but that's our courthouse." And I thought they were going to like turn away and go back to 30th Street Station. And I took them in there, and they were blown away. They just absolutely fell madly in love with it. And Courtroom 243 became the courtroom for a movie called Philadelphia. So I could talk for 3 days just about the movie Philadelphia. Whenever I'm asked what was my very favorite film that I ever worked on, it is, was, and will always be Philadelphia, and I'll tell you why. First of all, we started out making the film. The first version of the script that I read was called At Risk. Okay. The second version of the script was called People Like Us. It was like, gag me, that's a terrible name, but the script was getting better. The third version of the script that I got to read was called Probable Cause, which was not a good title because it was a civil case and not a criminal case. So we started shooting in September. We took a break for Christmas. We did not have a title. We were calling it was like a Woody Allen movie. We were calling it Jonathan Demi's Fall Project. And there was actually a competition. Jonathan Demi said to the cast and crew, whoever comes up with a great title for this movie is going to get dinner here and dinner, like all these, different things and the credit for saying it. And so I was sleepless. I had to come up with the name of this movie. During the entire Christmas break, I came up with nothing that made any sense. And I went back, when we came back after the New Year, and we were at lunch break, and I went up to Jonathan and I said, "Welcome back. I'm so glad we're back." He said, "Sharon, I have something to tell you." And he put his hands on my shoulders and he said, "We're going to call the movie Philadelphia." So I thought I was going to faint on the spot because I could not, this is the first year of my job and they're naming the movie Philadelphia. And I thought, how am I ever going to beat that? I mean, can I get somebody to make a movie called Ed Rendell? I didn't know what I could possibly do to beat it. And I said, I have to go call my mother. And I ran away because I was just so overwhelmed by the whole thing. And the other reason why I love this movie the most is because we changed the world with that movie. Jonathan didn't know that I had lost my best friend to AIDS, and how important it was to me, and so many friends that I lost. But all of us were like that. All of us felt like we were on a mission to make people realize that the people who got AIDS were just people, and that it was a disease that we had to cure. So for me, that's the most important story, was that particular film. But I've had incredible films to work on since then, really amazing. And recently, what we've had are 21 Bridges. Now, we double for New York all the time. Nobody doubles for Philadelphia and gets it right. You make a film that's supposed to be set in Philadelphia, and you make it somewhere else. Anybody have a good example of that that's up for an Oscar? Irishman. Okay, I don't know if you guys like The Irishman, but I didn't. I think it was too long, and it was just, for me, this was not an Oscar-winning movie. And if you saw the film, I mean, Villa de Roma, that didn't look like Villa de Roma. Come on, guys. And I think if they had made that movie in Philadelphia, we would have helped them out. So they're nominated anyway, but I don't think they're going to win. So 21 Bridges is a movie that was set in, has anybody seen 21 Bridges, by the way? It's actually a pretty good movie. And so it was shot almost entirely in Philadelphia. They did some aerial shots in New York so they could get the bridges, but almost the entire movie was shot in Philadelphia. We did the movie Glass, Night Shyamalan's movie Glass. As you know, Night Shyamalan, what time are we done? We're winding up. Okay. So Night Shyamalan. Oh, we didn't have time for questions. Do you want to just ask me questions? You can see the list up there. Let me just tell you what we're shooting right now. We have an HBO series called Mayor of Easttown, starring Kate Winslet. I mean, come on, guys, it's great. She plays a Oscar winner. She plays a Delaware County detective, the only detective in a tiny little town in Delaware County. And it's a murder mystery, and I'm super excited about it. And HBO is a dream to work with. And we're doing Night Shyamalan's series Servant. We're on season 2 of Servant. If any of you haven't watched it, it is creepy as hell. You should definitely check it out. We've had This Is Us. You know, they have a storyline for Philadelphia now, so they're coming back here all the time. We just completed a television series called Dispatches from Elsewhere for AMC. That was the Jason Segel, Sally Field, Andre Benjamin show that was running around Richard E. Grant. And that took up our entire fall. We had a movie called Concrete Cowboys by a Philadelphia production company called the Neighborhood Film Company, an incredible company starring Idris Elba. I mean, yikes. We're praying that this film is actually going to be premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. We are, what have I missed? Well, you've got a list up there for some of them. Should we just take questions now? We have a couple of minutes. Who has questions?
So how about a round of applause first for our... Before I take a question, let me just point out that we've actually filmed with Sharon's assistants right across the street here at Jefferson Neuroscience. She called me one day because she wanted the closed hospital. This was for Creed 2, for those of you who don't know. She called me and she said, how do I get into that closed hospital? And I said, I don't know, but what about us? I mean, we got space over here I think we can use. And so lo and behold, we ended up filming a couple of scenes over at the Neuroscience Hospital for Creed 2. Those of you that have seen the movie, the very moving scene when he's in the hospital bed, that was right there. Along with a few other things, but and that's what whenever she calls, you just never know what's going to be on the other end of that phone line. So that's been a lot of fun over the years. I meant to tell you, when they filmed Distinguished Gentlemen in Harrisburg, yes. That was Bob's office that they used. Oh, no. Yeah, my husband was Speaker of the House at the time, and they took his office over, and he didn't get any.
Never knew that.
Yeah, see, it's like you got to catch up. Who's got a question for Sharon?
Saw a lot of the things you said, yeah. Thanks for being here, Sharon, really appreciate it. Just 2 questions. I can hear you. All right, cool. Hey. 2 questions.
Okay.
So I have spoken to several people at the film office and a couple other local filmmakers around, and we're all always talking about the tax credit. First question is, who gets the majority of it between us and Pittsburgh? And also, are there any updates on it being raised at all, or is it still being capped at where it's at?
So yesterday, the governor presented his budget, and we are yet again staying at $70 million. He doesn't get it. I don't know. He just doesn't get it. And we are probably going to be out of money the second we get it. Last year, or this current fiscal year, we're July 1, we got $70 million. Can you guess when we ran out of money? I'm just going to tell you, August 15th. I mean, it's ridiculous. Look at all the business that we're missing. No one is investing in Pennsylvania by building sound stages or bringing in new equipment, because how can you invest in when we run out of money so fast? So it's very, very challenging. And the fact that we nevertheless stimulate the economy so much, just imagine what we could be doing. So thanks for asking about that. But there was another part of your question. So this year we got it. Most of the previous years Pittsburgh was getting it. You know, the politics in Pennsylvania are very heavily in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Sharon, I have a question. Actually, I met you in 1991 when I was a grad student at Temple, and I interviewed you as part of an assignment.
God.
So it's just so great to see
You
you.
look great.
And you look the exact same. You have not changed one bit. My question is, with all the construction and detours and it's great for the city. It must be a huge challenge for you. I'm just wondering, has that inhibited, people from coming here? Doesn't seem like it, but I'm just interested.
It can be extremely challenging, especially when we go back to the same places over and over again. especially if it's a residential neighborhood and we go back there over and over again. And what we do is we set up neighborhood meetings, and the location crew comes with me and staff from my office, and some people from city government, if that's appropriate. And we have a meeting in a church, and we'll, in the neighborhood, and we let everybody be a sounding board, and we figure out ways to try to minimize the impact on the neighborhood. Most people are really nice about it. There are a few people who, are upset, and sometimes rightfully so. So yes, it's challenging. It is. It's a balance.
Anybody else? So I'll ask a final question then.
Okay.
Why are you not getting a piece of the revenue that is collected on hotels? I forget, it's like some kind of a surtax or something. I mean, it's.
So the hotel tax,
Right.
most of the people who are staying in hotels are staying over 30 days. So they're really not paying hotel tax, and they've directed all of that money just to tourism. They won't give it to us. Even our share of it, we're not getting. We are the only big city in the country that does not have, that doesn't charge a daily permit fee, but we're going to have to change that. We're talking with the administration about changing that, because we're doing all the work. If we weren't there, they'd have to hire a whole bunch of people to do the work that we're doing. So we're asking for a reasonable daily permit fee. Thanks for asking.
Well, I think, and for a little while, it seemed like you were getting traction with the legislative leadership, and I would have thought that would have carried the day with the governor. No, not happening?
No.
All right, so we got work to do. All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank
Come
you.
to our party. Anybody who wants to, you'll be on the list to come to our production party, March 21st. Everybody in the industry is going to be there. It's going to be at location 215 on Spring Garden Street, and it's a huge party. It's a dine around from all the great restaurants and an open bar. You have to be 21 and over, and it's and we're honoring Mike Jackson and maybe some special guests.
So we will promote that with our team and get some
Thank
of
you.
the folks who get it to show up.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sharon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.